engineering project.
That's why I'm at these specific ones. Hate this class. I hate it so much.
I wonder how many like tangible things she sets forward as solutions.
We had.
All right, so let's get class started. So last week we had an unfortunate internet catastrophe. Got us all out of class, so we're gonna do lab 6 today. Assignment 6 looks scary. If you haven't looked at it yet, it looks scary. It's not nearly as hard as it sounds. I will tell you it's a little tedious because there's a lot of if statements. If you haven't looked at it yet, it's a guessing game. You're gonna you have to set up a random number, and then your user is gonna guess. I'm gonna give you a hint for testing purposes while you're trying to get this running. You might want to change it down to guessing out of 10 instead of 100, because you could be there a long time playing your game if you guess poorly. But so lab 6, let's get that done first. It does come, there is a file to get you started. And I think this is not the right file. I think part of it's been done in this one. But we're going to walk through the directions. I'm going to show you how to change the code up. We're refactoring code I already gave you. And we're going to make the turtle randomly move around the screen. Everybody good so far? I know it's Monday, and you usually just sit here and listen to me talk on Mondays, but we're going to do a little bit of work. A little bit. If we get finished, I'll pull up lab 6 and walk you through some of that. Not assignment 6. We'll at least read through it and I'll give you some hints and tips. All right, so we started idle. This link doesn't work, but I put it on the lab6.py file on the content page. So if you go back over here, it is right here, and you can click on it and hit the download button and download it and edit it with idle, and all's good. Gonna be one of those days, isn't it? All right. So we're gonna run it and make sure it works, just because. Yeah, this one has too much code in it. I didn't get the starter file. That's okay. So see, it ran randomly with the turtle changing directions every time it turned, and color. And it didn't stop until the turtle ran off the screen. So
Yeah.
what this basically gives you is this end screen function, because we didn't want you to have to figure out the logic for whether or not it was in the screen. So you get that for free from me. What you needed to work on is this. So I'm going to, for right now, I'm going to get rid of that. So the original code should have just been squares. And if the book had worked, it would have just been squares. And it takes a lot longer to get off the screen with just the squares, because this one made a lot of poor choices. Right? And it stopped because this code also has why did it stop? Oh, the count's in there. Okay. So First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go find all the W's and the T's and you're gonna make them into useful variable names. So everywhere it says T, I want it to be a name and not just T. Everywhere it says WN, it should be window, things like that. Yes? So let's do that real quick. So this will be Tom the turtle. This is going to be window. I don't know.
Oh, he named his turtle Bert.
Well, he can name his second one Ernie. Then you can have Bert and Ernie. All right. So I fixed the main where it's using Tom and window instead of T and WN because that's more useful variable names. Everybody with me so far? So the next thing was to add doc strings for the isScreen function. IsInScreen function. So if we go down to IsInScreen, this was already been refactored to get rid of the turtles, the T and the W's, but it doesn't have a doc string. So the doc string is supposed to tell me what this function is doing, right? So based on its name, what do you think this function tells my program? Yes.
Whether or not the turtle is on the screen.
Whether or not the turtle has left the screen. So what does our doc string need to look like? What should it say? So I just wrote something really quick that says this function checks to see if the turtle has left the screen. Now, if you want to carry it a bit further, you can say it returns true or false. It takes a parameter. For our purposes, I just need the basics of what it is. If you take CS1, then you would actually have to tell me about the parameters or the return values. One day you want me to bring in some Java code and show you what it looks like. Those of you that are going on the CS1. I can show you. At least I can show you what the comments are supposed to look like. All right. Does this make sense? All right. Take the code that creates the window and the turtle and moves the turtle about until it moves outside the bounds of the window. Don't forget to add a doc string for the new function. So it wants us to take oh, it's already been done. We did it up here. So obviously I gave you the finished file instead of the starter file. So this is going to go really quick because I gave you the finished file instead of the starter file. So we're just going to read this file basically. So originally this code was in here. So these 2 lines, 3 lines, were originally in here. Right? But it's not a good place for them because we know that we want that to be in our main because the main drives our program. And then we want to be able to pass our turtle into our code and use it multiple times. That way we don't have a new turtle every time we draw something. That would be annoying, right? Also, it would make your picture look different because every line would have a turtle in the corner. Because it would turn, because each turtle would only draw one segment, and it would create another turtle. And if you did that, you'd use up a lot of memory and processing because each segment of a new turtle. Yes. So I removed some stuff in here because I wanted to show you how to do it. All right, so new functionality for it. Right now, with what I removed, the turtle only makes right-hand turns, right? Yeah.
So you said that you handed us the finished version of the file, but for some reason it's asking us to add a call to main, which calls the new function we just created.
Well, make sure that I didn't cut a line off when I copy and pasted it in. You can't read the directions word for word. The call to main is this line. Oops. This right here is the call to main.
Yeah.
It's there. Like I said, I've already done all the steps in the directions. They're all there. Which step are you on?
Step E of part 1.
Step E, introduce a main function. It's right here.
And
It wasn't, if I had given you the correct starter file, you wouldn't have had that. You would have had to written it.
function you introduced. Yet the main was supposedly the new function we introduced.
Okay, we can do that. All right, so we're gonna move all the create turtle stuff to a new function because we have at least one person that wants to read the directions. And go figure. All right, so I could take the stuff that creates the turtle in the window and moves it and put it into a new function that I made, and then I could just call that function. Still does the same thing. It was just an unnecessary function that the directions had you do for practice, but you didn't need it. You could have just done it all in main. So there it is. All right. Down here, you have a bunch of directions that want you to change the functionality to add to the random turtle turning left or right 90 degrees. A third and fourth option are added. They'll turn 45 degrees. So I cut those out because I wanted to write them for you. You should have them. Should be the if else ifs in there. But I wanted to talk through writing them because that's where you learn the stuff, is me talking through it, I think. So if I put those back and just type them, so if I do else if, so originally you had a coin toss. I changed the random. A coin toss would only have a random of 1 or 2, but you could change your random to be 4. Then it's more like a die 4 instead of coin toss, but it doesn't matter, right? So as long as your random has enough options, so we're gonna have 4 options when we're done. you can just add to it. So I can have an else if for 1 that has the turtle turn in this case, it wanted it to turn 45 degrees instead of 90, right? So it's just the same code with different parameters. We'll give it a different color, make it yellow, and it go 45 degrees, right? So this is what you're going to need for your guessing game. If the guess is too high, you want to do something. If it's too low, you want to do something else. And very simply, the first part of the guessing game is that you're just going to tell somebody to guess higher or lower until they get the correct number. Once you get the correct number, you're going to print out, hey, you won, game over, right? It's going to get more elaborate as you go. But the simplistic version of it, which you're going to start with, is that. So you set up an if statement with enough if-elses to hit all of your possibilities. Is it too low? Is it too high? Is it exactly the right thing for assignment 6? In this case, we need enough statements for 4 options: turning 90 degrees right, 90 degrees left, 45 degrees right, 45 degrees left. So we have 4 options. So we need 4 branches to this statement. One thing I will caution you to do, it should be left, yes, is make sure that you, when you're copying and pasting, you do all the changes. Because it's really easy to go, oh, that's just the same code. I'm gonna copy and paste it. Now you have 2 of them turning left, and you need 1 of them to turn right. So sometimes I make mistakes intentionally. Sometimes I don't. A lot of times I don't. A lot of times I just make mistakes. So in this case, the first thing I would have done, had I not already known how to write this code, when I read the directions, I would have gone, how many options do I have? So let's say I already have a turn right 90, a turn left 90. It wants me to add a turn right 45 and a turn left 45. So I need 4 branches to my conditional statement. Now, I only had to write test for 3 of them. Because if it wasn't one of the first 3 options, it falls into the else bucket and I don't have to test for it. Right? Could I have written another else if down there? Else if coin equals 3. Yes, absolutely. Is equally correct. Unnecessary, but correct. Y'all are all staring at me. I have 2 or 3 of you that are following along. The rest of you I think are asleep. So it's okay. I want to be asleep too. All right. So if we run this now, we're back to having some zigzaggy lines instead of just squared off lines. And we have 4 different colors, which I can't see from up here at this angle. It looks like they're all kind of black or yellow. This TV new display up here is weird. Right? Everybody with me so far? Okay. So the code's already modified to do this. It's modified to do this different color every time. Turns left or right. Okay, so it's not modified to do this. So every time it turns left or right 90 degrees, I want to add a turtle stamp. Who remembers the turtle stamp function from project project. Who remembers the code for it?
And it's like the turtle object dot stamp and then parentheses.
Well, let's try that out. So it's turtle
Dot stamp
dot
and
stamp,
then parentheses. And nothing in it.
nothing in it because we want it to just be the shape it is, right? We want to do it on the 90-degree turns only. So I'm going to add code here. I'm also going to add code on the other 90-degree turn here. Now, every time it makes a right-hand turn, it should stamp a turtle there. Let's test it, see if it works. Yeah.
Isn't it meant to stamp before changing color and before turning?
Possibly. So you're saying that you think I have it out of order?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because remember I told you order of operations matters. Why did I put it at the bottom? Because I felt like that was the place that you guys would have first put it. If you were just looking at this, oh, I got a blank line right here. I'm going to type this right here. I was going to run it and show you that. So if I run this now, because I test everything that I modify. You all test everything you modify, right?
Absolutely.
So in this case, the turtle is not necessarily in line with its turn, right? And the color changed before it drew its next line. Now you have to watch your turtle pretty closely to know that the color changed first. So if I move it up here, now it will stamp at the before it changes, right? And before it turns. And that's a little bit different. Now, does it really make a huge visual difference? Not really, but it's a learning tool to show you that the order you put things in definitely matters. Learning lessons is good. Notice that it's stopping before it touches the edge of the screen. That's because one of the other functionalities that you're supposed to add that's already been added to this one was to set up a counter, and if it reached a certain number of steps, to stop. Because theoretically, if this turtle makes random turns and gets really lucky, he could be in the screen a long time. All right, so we ran and saved the code. Modify the functionality so it counts the number of times that turtle moves forward. We did that. It's very simple to do that. I set up a counter before my if statement and before my while loop. I'm going to set it equal to 0. While, if you notice, your while loop here has two things. First thing it's going to do is it's going to check to see if the turtle is in the screen by calling that function, right? Then it has the keyword and another test. So if count is less than 50 and it's in the screen, this loop runs. If either one of these is false, it's not in the screen, or count is greater than 50 or greater, then it's not run. Now, if I change that to or, what would happen? Yes.
You might run into the same case scenario where it just keeps looping in on itself due to being on the screen, and even if count is more than 50.
Right, because if you use or instead of and, only one of them has to be true. So as long as it was in the screen, or count was less than 50, you would keep running. So theoretically, it could have more than 50 steps as long as it stays on the screen. Now, can I change this count? Absolutely. I could change it to 20, and then it was only going to do 20 turns. Or I could change it to 200, and then it could theoretically do 200 turns. 50 seems like a fairly reasonable number to me because it's not so long that I get bored watching the turtle draw on the screen. And again, yeah, you could increase the speed of your turtle and it would go really, really quick, but so we did that. You get a pretty picture, and that's pretty much all of the lab. So I know I did a lot of it for you. I didn't make you write a lot of code. But I am going to open up assignment 6 in just a second and help you start getting ready, get started on that. Because we have 45 minutes left of class, right? So, questions before I move on. Is there any concept in here that just blows your mind and you want to talk about it some more? While loops. Do we understand while loops? Do we understand if statements?
You scroll up just a little bit, please.
Yes.
I'm having some issues because I think you might just want to see the error message.
I'll come look at it now. So, how far do you want me to scroll down? You are not paying attention to me after asking me to scroll down. How far do you want me to scroll down? You should not have touched this. This function should be, except for the doc string, should be exactly the way you downloaded it. You had all the code for most of this. We added this line, and then we tested it, right? Yep. Yes, no, maybe. Back up? Yep.
Thank you for scrolling down.
You're welcome.
Service.
I don't know that it's a service to our country, but it's a service to your class. Now, there's no reason anybody should have anything less than a perfect score on lab 6 because all we really did was add 2 or 3 lines of code, right? And test it. This is my gift to you because A, I uploaded the wrong file, and B, the internet really gave us fits last week. About 10 or 15 minutes after I let y'all go, the internet came back up. But it's okay. All right. I would like to do assignment 6. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions on code while y'all finish typing, and then I'm going to swap over to assignment 6. So I know you had something you want me to look at. And you,
Self-documenting by adding here. But whenever I do that, and I run
Congrats.
graph,
Congrats on being here.
local
I feel really good about it.
I don't think there's any pictures.
No, there's not, but.
It's gonna switch right back.
Yeah, I was gonna- there's a picture. Yeah. Anybody.
Okay.
all right. Go ahead and pull up or download the document for assignment. Get it? And let's at least talk through it if we don't get it started. YouTube left it up. The videos, I try to put them up as soon as I can, but yeah, the YouTube videos have to process, and even though I'm live streaming them, they don't live upload. So, which is really kind of weird to me. But you know, what do I know? It's YouTube. No, this is a YouTube thing. I don't know why it takes hours to process the video, why it just doesn't. I'm sure they're putting meta tags and stuff in it that I don't know anything about, but you know, I don't get to monetize any of mine, so I don't know anything about that stuff. Yeah. Okay, a little bit louder. Look at the students in the background. I'm behind it in the window. Okay. Do you need the code back up there, or you can call here? No. Okay. Honestly, if you turn this one in, I'll just give you credit for it because I did it all. One would hope that your classmates will turn in the correct code. It's unnecessary at this point.
All right.
So let's talk about, okay, ignore the stuff at the top because obviously I didn't change the due dates on this one. I couldn't find the document because I usually give you a Word document instead of a PDF. Lord knows where I filed that Word document on my chaotic organization scheme. So there's a PDF of assignment 6. So let's talk about it real quick. Before we even start coding, I want to look at it and talk about it. Because you all read it before you code it, right? You don't just jump in and start writing code, because that wouldn't be right. So I'm going to skip over the getting started part because you know how to do that. You know how to name your files. I actually have to say that you guys have been one of my best classes as far as starting in files that were named correctly. So thank you very much. Pat yourselves on the back for that one. You can read directions and you know your names. I really haven't had to dock anybody points for misnaming a file this semester. So thank you. It's very frustrating sometimes. So basically, we're going to create a very simplistic game. All you people that want to be game developers, this is where people start off working on game logic. So this is a guessing game. We're going to guess a number between 1 and 100. Ultimately, by the end, we want to A, keep up with how many guesses the person has made. B, narrow down the logic for them so they don't have to make as many guesses. And C, we're going to give them an out clause by using the sentinel value if they're tired of playing this game.
All right.
But we're going to start off small. We're just going to make a basic game first. We're going to leave a lot of the extras off on the first few steps. Now, I suggest while you're testing that you change it to 1 to 10, just where you don't have to guess as much when you're doing your testing. But don't forget to change it back before you turn it in. One problem I did find when I was grading over the weekend is a lot of people are commenting stuff out while they're testing in their main and then not uncommenting it. So this time I fixed it for them. Moving forward, if you uncomment something and I don't see it run, I'm not giving you points for it. And I'm not trying to be mean, but let's be honest, it slows down the grading process if I have to go in and fix all your codes. And I'm still grading projects. My goal is to have your project graded tonight or tomorrow and in the grade book. I did some grading. I got some of your grades in over the weekend, but I got bogged down in the projects. So we're going to create a guessing game. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to put the rules of the game or the directions for the game up. You're going to print out the directions. We're going to, so we have a write a function that will display the following message about your guessing game, and then call it from the main function. You should always assume from here on out that you have a main function driving your program. I got several people who turned in Lab 5 and Assignment 5 without mains. They just randomly called their functions wherever they wanted to. So many points lost over something silly. So our first function you're going to write, like I said, is just the directions. Just the directions. The second function is the actual game itself, the logic. Yes. So this function should have output like the following when done. It doesn't have to be word for word the following, but it should be very similar. What is your guess? That would be an input statement, right? Then after you guess, it should print out whether it was incorrect or if you won. Now, this doesn't help you narrow it down a lot. This is the simple version of the game. You could guess 48, and the number was 49, but you have no way of narrowing it down. You don't know whether to go higher or lower. And that's perfectly fine at this point. That's the reason I said use 10, because it gives you a lot less things to guess with. When we get further along, we'll add some more functionality to it. So you're going to have the computer get a random number. You're going to have to create a Boolean variable that's set to true for the loop. So you call it loop. I don't care what you call this variable, as long as it makes sense. You could guess correct. You can call it whatever you want to. Or needs to get. I don't care. Call it something that makes sense to you. Here's your while loop. While that variable is true, we want it to keep going. So guess what? When you do guess the correct number, you should set that variable to false. I think in mine, I called it keep guessing. Keep guessing equals true. You need to keep guessing. When I find the number, I change keep guessing to false because I don't need to keep guessing. Yes? That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
I got a really unhappy look at me, but okay. Because remember, while loops do something while the test is true. Once the test is false, it stops. All right. Inside that loop, you're going to prompt the user for the number to get for their guess. You're going to then convert that value to an integer. Don't forget, you always have to convert input from a string to an integer. And then you're going to run it through a series of ifs to see if it's the correct number. In this case, you're just checking whether it's correct or not, so it's an if else. Yes. And we're going to write a code and see the difference. So, do you want me to keep reading or you want to do this part? Do this part? Okay. Let's do this part. So We're gonna call it assignment 6. You're gonna put your name in it. I'm not turning mine in, so. Ooh. Okay. So let's go back up to the top and do it step by step. We're gonna define a main function. Yeah, I always do that because I forget to call the main at the end. All right, so far we don't have anything in the main, so I'm just gonna put a print statement there where it doesn't give me an error message when I start doing stuff. So. I don't care what you put in here, just give yourself a line of code where you don't get a runtime error or something telling you that. Makes sense? All right. Now we need to write a function that will display the following message. So what are we displaying? We're going to call it a message. And guess what? It's just a print statement. I don't know if you can copy and paste out of a PDF, but let's see. The answer to that question is no. Yeah, it doesn't like that. So you can put it all in one line and it'll let you copy and paste it. Or you can do separate print lines if you want to make it where you can see it on the screen. It'll wrap itself when you run it. So I copied and pasted because I'm lazy. You want to change the wording and you want to type it yourself, feel free. Just remember that it won't always copy and paste exactly the way you see it. Does that make sense? So now I can come back up here to main and I can call and when I run it, it should have 2 print statements. Oh, except I forgot to close the parentheses at the end. That's the bad thing about everything running off the screen. Oops. All right, now let's run it. Now, can I clean this up where it doesn't like cut off words? Absolutely. If you want to do it in 2 lines where, you know, A, it's easier to read in your code, and B, it looks better on your screen, feel free. If you want to go look at your formatting stuff and your prints, feel free. So I'm going to cut it off right here just to make it look prettier and put in a second print statement. And now when I run it, it looks a little bit better if my screen's open, right? Yes, no, maybe. All right. Back over here. So now I'm on to my next function. So this one writes a function that plays the game. So I'm going to call it play game. You call it whatever you want to call it. Now, we have to have the computer create a random number. That's the first direction, right? So what's the first thing I need to go do? Import random. Again, I do all my import statements at the top. Right? You are going to have to go put doc strings in for all these. I'm not writing those. You do need to do that later. Does main have to have one? No, but the rest of them should have at least one sentence telling you what the function is supposed to do. I don't know if it says that in the code or not, but I'd like to see that. All right. So we got to get this random. So I'm gonna call it number. Somebody want to tell you what the code is because you've done random numbers multiple times? Anywhere?
Parentheses. Doing it 1 through 10, you can do like 1 to 11. 1 to 10, it kind of is one single digit.
Random about random.
Let's create the random first,
Yeah.
right? Now, we create number. And I know I want to go what? I want to go 1 to 100. I'm going to put 10 in because I want this to be short. Now, does this give me all the numbers I need? What do you remember about random numbers? The last one's non-inclusive. So I actually need to go to 11. Because I started with 1, I can just put that in, but I need to go to 11 because it includes the starting point. It does not include the stopping number. I didn't program it, not sure why they did it that way. So this will give me a random number between 1 and 10, but it will not include the 11. So when you do this for 100, you need 101. All right. So I created a random number. I need to create a Boolean. Yeah. Yeah, you could. There's more than one way to skin the random number cat. Yeah. Remember, the great thing about programming is there's always more than one way to do it. So I need a loop variable. Oddly enough, I'm just going to call it loop because it's four little letters and it's easier to type. Do you want to call it something else? Feel free. And we're going to set it equal to true. But we need it to be capital T for true, where it's a Boolean value, right? Otherwise, you're setting it equal to a string. If your true doesn't turn orange, it's not typed correctly. So that's A and B, right? And then we want to create a while loop that will loop as long as the loop variable is true. Inside of the loop, we want it to prompt the user for a number to guess. And then we want to convert that to an integer. And then we want to check to see if it is the random number. Yes. So I need to write a while loop. While loop. Can I do that? Absolutely, because loop is true or false. And then I need an input statement, which oddly enough, I'm gonna cleverly name guess. Now, you can do it on this line or you can do it on a separate line, but you need to make sure you change it to an integer. I'm going to do it on this line just because I like making sure I've done it and I can see that I've done it all in one place. If you're happier doing it in two separate lines, feel free. But we have reached a point where, you know, it's not unheard of for you guys to start using some shortcuts. So I'm going to get the guess. If guess equals number, congratulations, you win, something like that, right? I'm abbreviating because I'm trying to get as much done as possible for you guys before you leave. That doesn't mean that you can't go back in and clean up this assignment before you turn it in. Yeah. All right. Else, you want to guess again. Now, if it is the correct number, we also need to stop the game, right? So this is where we need to change the loop variable. So you could do it before or after the print statement. In this case, it's not going to matter because the user is not going to actually see you changing that variable. But you do need to, in here, change loop to equal false. If you leave that step out, your loop is going to continue to run. Forever. Infinitely. So let's test what we've got so far. Because we've actually written quite a bit of code here that we haven't tested. I didn't do anything. What did I forget to do? Call it in main. I like it when you all quote the thing at the same time. So I need to call this function in main. So it doesn't like random and range. So let's change it to random int. Because I'm sure I mistyped that. Still doesn't like it. Why doesn't it like it this time? All right, somebody tell me what this line is supposed to look like. Is it capital int? What did you use? Is it a capital range? No, it's all lowercase.
Okay.
Okay, I'm stupid. Okay, it does not like my random. Why does it not like my
Range,
random?
okay, number equals random dot rand range.
Rand range?
Yeah, not like, that's fine, dot rand range.
Oh. That way?
Yeah.
Ah, you know, I don't use random numbers that often. You wanted me to go back?
I don't understand, like, I got, everything looks right, the same, like, they're telling me 9 instead of letting me type it in, like.
All right, so I'll look at it closer in a second. All right, so we got a random number now. What is my guess? I'm going to take 5 because that's halfway in the middle, right? That was wrong. Start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hey, look, it was 10. This is why you want to start off with a small number for guessing. Right? Because if I had made that 100 the first time out, we could have been here a very long time while I was testing this. You could even make it 5 if that makes it easier for you. If I run it a second time, it should be a different number. And it is. Oh, it'd probably be 1. Yep. Go figure. So, does that make sense? Yeah. So you have the basics here, right? Now, this could be more useful and narrow down your thing if it told you whether or not the number you guessed was too high or too low, right? Right? So if the guess is equal to the number, you want to do that. You could also do an else if it's greater than the number, I cannot type that. Right? And then you could also have one for lower. And if you do this, you should have made your gameplay take less time because you're narrowing down the yes, right? So if I put 5 in this time, my guess is too low. So now I know I don't have to check 1 through 4. Yes? So now I can guess 6, 7, 8, 9, and it never fails. It's always about as far away as you can get for me. Does that make sense? So what we've covered is the logic of how the game plays. Everything from here on out is just enhancing that. Right? So we have a very simple game. You've all now written your first game. Aren't you proud of yourself? There are 0 graphics involved. It's all text.
Yay.
So we go back to our directions. I've actually started on step 2. I've added the functionality, but the user's guess is incorrect. Will it display high or low? So I just did that step for you. So those of you that read this and went, oh my gosh, this is really hard. It's really not. It's just going to be time consuming. So don't wait till 30 minutes before it's due to start typing this code, because you will be very frustrated if you do. Step 3, number of guesses. How do I keep up with how many times I've guessed? You just want to make a variable called count and increment it every time it goes through the loop. Because if it asks for a guess, then you need to add a number. So that's, again, fairly simple. We're going to create the variable outside the loop, because if you don't create it outside the loop, it resets every time, right? So I'm going to call it count equals 0. After I guess, I'm going to increment count. And then, let's see, where's the congrats you win? You could put something in here that says, or something equally silly like that. And I guessed 3 times and it told me how many times I guessed, right? Have I lost anybody? Have you all gone, I can do this. This is easy compared to the last project. I'm not drawing triangles in a loop over and over and over and over again. Okay. So back to the directions. You're going to put a sentinel value in. This is just another thing in your if. You're going to check to see if guess is equal to this. If it is, you're going to change. You're going to have a print statement saying thank you for playing or whatever. And then you're going to change your loop variable to false, because you want to stop playing. I'm not writing this for you. I'm going to let you try to puzzle this one out too. But again, this is just another rand is another variable you're going to create with the value of negative 999 in it. You can compare it to the guess in your if statement. If it equals that, you're jumping out. Step 5, adding a play again functionality. You're going to have to figure out how to ask them if they want to play again. If they do, you want to do this all over again with a new random number. The key here on play again is making sure that you reset the random number. I can't tell you how many times I test these, and I have to say play again, yes, and it's exactly the same number, and I went on the first guess. Yes, I will test it to see if it changed the random number. So basically, you have to figure out somewhere in your code how to call play game and start over. This also can be a loop. Am I going to tell you how to do it? No, but if you email me with and show me that you've actually tried it and asked me questions, I definitely will answer them. I don't get nearly the emails that I think I should get sometimes. And Today's Monday. So we'll treat this Wednesday as a lab day. So if you have questions, you can come here and ask me. If you're online, you can email me. Yeah. You have an issue? I'll check it just a second. All right, so let me wrap up by just looking at the rest of the steps, and then we're going to stop the video, and then I'll answer individual questions. So remember, you're going to ask after they've won if you want to play again, right? Step 6 is guiding the user. You want in your print statement to tell them what the range they're guessing between. That means you have to keep up with what the current guess is, as well as what the past guess was. You just need another variable to keep up with what the guess was before you reset it. This, I'm gonna tell you the truth, is where people usually drop points because they don't want to spend the time figuring out how to put those numbers in an input statement. We did this in a previous lab. It's not a print statement, so you have to convert the number back to a string. That's my hint for the day on that one. You want step 7 is to tell them if they guessed outside the range. So if they give you 192 as a guess, you just say, that's not a valid guess, and you shouldn't count that as one of their guesses. So you're going to have a lot of if statements here. A lot of if statements. Just be careful the order you put them in, if that's going to matter. So it may change. What is your first statement may not be your first statement when you get to the 7th step. Because my head and my logic, I'm now changing my first statement to check to make sure that they gave me a number that's in the range, right? All right. And that is all of it. So I'm going to stop the video now. I'm going to check a few people's code before they leave. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we will have a lab day. Friday, I'll introduce the next project, because if I'm not mistaken, next week is project 2. Project 2, if you look on your calendar, is 2 weeks long. I don't give you 2 weeks because you can do it in a day. And we will spend a considerable amount of class time next week getting you started. All right.